This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Groomer Humor on Pet Life Radio. Once again, we are your hosts. I'm Rudy V, along with Anthony Ray. First and foremost, we want to thank our producer, Mark Winter, and Pet Life Radio for giving us this opportunity. And most of all, we want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to our show, making it what it is today. In this episode, we are going to be talking about why groomers eventually have to stop grooming your older dog. This is a really important episode, and there's a lot of dynamics to this episode of what we should do about it, what happens when your dog gets older, but we're going to talk about it, so let's get into it. And we also have our very, very funny comment segment in this episode of Groomer Humor.
Does your pet's breath leave a bit or a lot to be desired? You can give your pet the gift of sweeter breath and you'll get sweeter kisses with Probiora Pet. That breath is the result of harmful bacteria which lives in your pet's mouth. And that harmful bacteria can lead to serious health problems. The solution is to crowd out that bad bacteria with positive bacteria. All it takes is 1 scoop a day of Probiora Pet mixed into their food to replenish the good bacteria. That's it. This all-natural, no-taste, no-odor powder is the only dental care probiotic for pets which delivers beneficial bacteria which supports tooth and gum health and crowds out the bad. A healthy body starts with a healthy mouth, and Probiora Pet is the best way to give your pet a healthy mouth. And our listeners get a 10% discount using PLR10 at checkout. To purchase, go to probiorahealth.com. That's probiorahealth.com and use code PLR10 at checkout for 10% off.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Groomer Humor. Once again, we are your hosts. I'm Rudy V, along with Anthony Ray, losing weight by the day. Ant, what's going on, man? You're losing weight.
Losing weight by the day. It's the way. Yeah.
Man,
I just figured, yeah. Well, I figured with a baby on the way, it's probably a good idea for me to stay alive as long as possible. So, you know.
Stay alive as long
Yeah.
as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. You don't want them growing up fatherless right off the bang. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Because I enjoy, quesadillas a little too much. So
Yeah.
I figured just tighten up the screws a little on the old life there.
Yeah. Quesadillas washing it down with a pack of Pall Malls.
Yeah. That's not a good, that's just, that's not a good combination.
No, man. No, it's not. That's not good. This is the reason why most men, that are expecting a baby, get rid of their motorcycles. Anthony just has to get rid of his food consumption.
Right. I got to get rid of my Taco Bell orders because they are hefty and expensive too.
But you do look good, and you cleaned up really nice. So I'm very proud of you.
And thank you. Yeah, I finally cut the hair. That was getting out of hand.
You don't look homeless anymore. You look like you kind of got a job and found shelter now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I look like I have at least live under a roof.
Yes.
Yeah, my hair I have these beautiful locks, but I look so weird with it down. I look like a chubby vampire.
Chubby, like who wants to get bitten by a chubby vampire?
Right? Exactly. And that's your master.
Right. If you're gonna get bitten by a vampire, you want to be like Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise. An interview with a vampire. You don't want a chubby vampire biting you.
Yeah, because you're tethered to them, I think, is the rule for the rest of your existence. So it's like if you get bit by like a short, chubby vampire, it's kind of like, dude, I'll smack you in the face. Get away from me.
Right. You fat vampire.
Yeah, you're fat. Leave me alone. Like, I'm not afraid of you.
Oh, my God. That's too funny. But
Yeah.
Anyway,
Dog grooming show. Dog grooming.
Dog grooming show, right? Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
it, man. So, uh, to I guess the tag the my really long intro on this one. Sorry it was so wordy, guys. I'm a little tired and my thought process is a little off right now. But yeah, the topic was, why, groomers eventually have to stop grooming your older dog. And this is a pretty serious one though. So, aside from the vampire laughter, we got to get into this. But one of the main reasons is, your dog, as it gets older, starts developing a lot of problems. Mainly, they start to go blind, they can't hear anymore, and they become very, very stressed out and can't even handle the grooming. Some dogs, as they get older, just start suffering from like dementia. They don't even know where they are. And it becomes very, very difficult when you're trying to groom a dog that needs to stay still. So that's the main reason why it happens. But in doing that, it becomes very dangerous, right? Ant? It just
Yeah.
after a while,
It's man, that when it gets to that point, honestly, it's one of the parts of this job that I loathe. It's so difficult and sad. It's a lot of different things all at once.
Yeah. A couple of the things that happen along with, going blind is the dogs become very like face sensitive, especially like in your Shih Tzus, Lhasas, your Bijans that require a lot of clipper work around the face area. They don't know what it is anymore. And they'll just start biting at it, they'll start biting at the clippers. And there's a really, really high chance that they're going to get severely injured. And now you're rushing them to the vet.
I notice a lot too, the teeth, when the teeth start kind of rotting or going bad, that hurts the dog. So now you can't even they're touching their face becomes so tedious, like because they're afraid it's gonna hurt and ache because their teeth are falling out and stuff. So that becomes a whole nother issue. How do you trim up the face, or how do you control the face at all when you can barely touch their mouth?
Like even in the bathtub, they become so sensitive around the mouth. Even their skin becomes hypersensitive. And we've talked about this in the past, but the reason why we're doing it again is because we're actually seeing it again. As groomers that have been grooming for a really, really long time, this is something that is just comes across us all the time. Even wetting a dog down with water, a real skin sensitive dog, older dog will sometimes even start to yelp because the water even hitting them is causing them pain and hurting them. It's really, really hard to watch.
Yeah. I do a lot of the baths at our shop, and you're totally right. It's like anything basically can become like a yikes moment depending on how elder a dog's condition is, or it sometimes doesn't even have to be an old dog, just like, a dog with something going on. It's a real challenge.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that affects the dog. Also, they tend to not be able to stand very well. They get a lot of growths, a lot of warts. Even their hearts become very weak. Their breathing is labored. So it's not even just like, we can't groom him because he's older and stuff like that. It's very, very serious to the point where, listen, your dog can die at a grooming shop because it's just too stressed out, and its heart gives out. That's how serious we have to take this. But one of the problems is, how do you explain to a customer who's been bringing their dog to you for 13 years, and all of a sudden you have to have that talk and say, hey, listen, we can't groom the dog anymore? What do they do? What do they do?
Well, I guess that's the point. That's the challenge of it. That's really, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do? We can't. We're so shackled ourselves.
Right. Exactly. And it just becomes this unsolvable problem, to be honest with you, because there's nothing you can do. There's almost nothing you can do, because what are you going to do? Like, what's the worst of two evils, right? So now you try to do it, right? You try to force the issue here and try to get the dog groomed. And all of a sudden now you cut the dog open because it bites the clippers, or you gash open a really bad wart. And now the dog has to go to the vet. And okay, so now you have a 13-year-old dog that an owner took to get groomed, and all of a sudden they're at the vet and they're under anesthesia. Like, that's not good. That's not a good scenario.
Yeah, that right there is where you realize just leaving the dog alone at home that day would have been way more beneficial to the dog's health.
Right.
You
Yeah, and
know,
you're out $1,500, $2,000 because now the dog's on the table at the vet, and it may not even survive. And it's just, oh God, guys, I don't know if does anybody want to be a dog groomer?
I mean, if you do, this is definitely one of the harder parts to accept. If being a dog groomer is something that you wanted to do, this is part of it, and this is one of the crummy parts of it. There's a lot of good in dog grooming, obviously, and there's a lot of reward in how you feel in helping these dogs. But yeah, this what we're talking about here is something to expect, and it is very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. And the answer to, let's say you have an older dog on the grooming table and you know that it's just too dangerous to do, you got to stop. Just to all you groomers out there, and I don't have to tell you this, but you have to stop. Yeah, you have to stop grooming that dog. You have to call the owner, and you have to do this. You just have to explain it, whether the owner wants to hear it or not. You're just looking out for the safety and well-being of the dog. Okay, but then what does the owner do from there? What happens is the dog just starts growing out really, really bad, and they more than likely will have to bring the dog to the vet and have maybe the vet do some, temporary grooming, but at least, he's at the vet or she's at the vet, and not in a grooming shop where, they have to be rushed to the vet. If something happens there, at least they can handle the issue.
Well, that's a really good point. Whenever it comes up that we recommend to one of our customers that they should have a vet do it, it's for that reason. God forbid something were to happen, at least you're already at the vet. Again, this doesn't always just apply to an elder dog, or it could be any. It could be a dog who is just really nuts or has severe anxiety getting groomed and tries to nip or whatever. Like you just said, sometimes a dog will bite the clippers. Well, if we at least recommended that you go to the vet and do it, and the dog accidentally bites the vet's clippers, at least you're at the vet because that's what's going to happen next anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good point. Your dog doesn't necessarily have to be an older dog. It could be any dog. It could be a severely matted dog. It could be a dog that's just, sensitive and hypersensitive to clipper, to sound, that's just not letting you do it. And, in a lot of cases, though, a lot of groomers that will be willing to work with that dog and maybe do it at another time and maybe ease the dog into grooming. But that is a tricky thing, because sometimes, and it's happened to us, where we'll work on a dog, right? And it may take, 10 groomings, right? We finally get the dog to accept the grooming process, and then that customer just jumps and leaves and goes somewhere else. It's almost as bad as, a fat vampire. I don't know. That pisses me off. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. Yep. Yeah. So again, if you want to be a groomer, you could expect some really sad things when the dogs get older and you have to tell the owners you can't do it anymore. And you could expect to put a lot of effort into getting a dog to trust you, only for them to go somewhere else potentially.
Happens all the time. I have 3 customers right now that just did the same thing. I've been grooming their dog, worked my butt off, getting them used to it, finally got the dog to a point where, hey man, the dog's accepting the grooming. He loves me. She loves me. And boom, they're at another grooming shop.
And they're doing great at the other grooming shop, most likely, because we trained them to do so.
Exactly. Right. And the other groomer gets the credit for it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the benefits. This is why groomers should remain friends. Some groomers are so competitive with each other, and it's like, no, you should be friends, because then you could talk to each other, and
Yeah.
whatever. Like, that happens sometimes where we'll get a call from a groomer in our area who we're friends with, and they'll ask us about a specific dog because whatever, the customer came in and said we couldn't do it, me and my dad couldn't do it. So, and then that groomer will call us and ask us a little bit about the dog. Or when a customer moves and they find a new groomer and they say, oh, our old groomer was grooming by Rudy, you can call them, and then and then that groomer will call us and ask us some stuff about that dog, and like, how is it, and what's the temperament, all that. So communicate, I guess. It's a good thing if groomers are friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think groomers should communicate more. We should recommend each other more because, again, there's just so many dogs out there. We're just pointing out one thing that happens. And the reason why we're doing the show is, again, because, it's happening to us again more recently where we're getting a lot of elderly dogs coming in. Another one of the problems, though, with being a groomer, as if there's not, a million problems with being a groomer. And we don't want to just stress the problems because this is a very rewarding job. So don't get us wrong. But the purpose of the show is just to teach people, to teach groomers what they could expect, especially newer groomers. One of the things that can happen is, okay, so let's say somebody calls you up for an appointment and they have an older dog that has been being groomed by another shop, and the other shop can't really do it, or they refuse to groom it. Now, all of a sudden, that dog's in your shop and you hurt that dog because of the issues that we're talking about, right? He's biting the clippers, whatever. And all of a sudden now in that one grooming, you're a piece of crap. You suck now as a groomer. Think about that, guys. You know what I mean? This wasn't even your customer, but they came in begging and pleading, please groom my dog, please. He really needs it. And you look at the dog and you go, oh my God, I feel so sorry for this dog. I really want to just shave it down and make it feel better. And in your attempt to be a good person and an animal lover, you try to do the right thing, but you end up hurting the dog, and now it automatically becomes the wrong thing.
See, and that's where you have to ask the question. This is why this is going to come out wrong, but I'll explain it. Grooming is not the kind of business where the customer is always right. You guys know that. We've said enough stuff, on the show throughout the years that would point to that. But the reason being for that is if the groomer can't do it, then nobody ever asks the question, well, what about the groomer though? Like, what happens next for the groomer? We always put a lot of focus on, well, what does the customer do next? What do you guys do next as customers? What happens to the dog? Right. But people never ask, well, what happens to the groomer? And take that situation that you just laid out there. Now you're a piece of crap. Well, what now for that groomer? Odds are that groomer is going to get sued now, potentially, depending on how the customer reacts. This customer who was really sweet and begged you to do it, now you get sued, and then what? You have to close your doors, and now nobody could get their dogs groomed. So this entire business gets incredibly messy sometimes, because that has happened, exactly what I just said.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you're going to get negative reviews on Yelp. God forbid that older dog died at your shop. Forget about it, man. You're going to be headline news. A dog dies in another grooming shop, and it may not even be your fault, man. It may just be what we're talking about. You tried to do the right thing, but it worked against you. So yeah, great point, Anthony. What happens to the groomer? Why? And where does the groomer go from there? And owning a dog grooming business is fairly easy. It's a really easy business to open up and start. There's not a whole lot of overhead. Equipment is, it's expensive up front, but nothing major. It's not like opening up a liquor store or anything like that. I mean, you could start a grooming business with $5,000, right? But that's not where it becomes hard. It becomes hard in what we're talking about. It's the emotional, mental stress of working on a live animal that's loved by a family. And that's where it really becomes this stressful, very scary thing. Like, do I even want to do this? Do I want to put myself in this position of that kind of stress, and for not even that much money? So you know what I'm saying? Like, you really got to question that. There's a lot of people out there that think that they're going to start grooming dogs and get rich. Listen, not to say that you can't get rich grooming dogs. You can, and it all depends on what you think rich is. A lot of people have a different opinion of what rich is. But the one thing you can be certain of is that you're going to be dealing with a heck of a lot of stress, emotional stress. So there you go. We have to ask ourselves, what do we do? What do groomers do? When do we stop? When do we refuse a grooming? You have to go with your gut instinct. But even though you do that, your gut instinct could be wrong.
Yeah. See, this episode, it might sound like we keep going off topic or whatever, but no, it's because this is so emotional. It's such an emotional, deed it's stressful, emotional stress for the dog, for us as groomers, for the customers, obviously the dog owners. So we're just sort of, spider webbing this into every other, like all the emotional aspects of grooming, because this is what having a dog in your shop for the duration of his life is all about. This episode is about the pinnacle of that, when you have to stop. So a lot of things go into that.
And we're telling the truth as veteran groomers. We're speaking the truth as far as like what groomers might feel, but don't want to say. But this is part of it, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to break, and we're going to come out with maybe a suggestion when we come back after these messages on Groomer Humor.
Take a bite out of your competition. Advertise your business with an ad in Pet Life Radio podcasts and radio shows. There is no other pet-related media that is as large and reaches more pet parents and pet lovers than Pet Life Radio. With over 7 million monthly listeners, Pet Life Radio podcasts are available on all major podcast platforms, and our live radio stream goes out to over 250 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, Stitcher, and other streaming apps. For more information on how you can advertise on the #1 pet podcast and radio network, visit PetLifeRadio.com/advertise today.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Groomer Humor on Pet Life Radio. We are your hosts as always. I am Anthony Ray, hanging out with my dad, Rudy V. And, a little bit of a tough one today, guys. We're talking about, when these dogs get older. Main point of the episode is, as a groomer, how are you supposed to tell your customer, the owner of a dog that you've been grooming for all these years, that you can't do it anymore? The dog is too old, or the dog has just become too much of an issue. So here's a suggestion. I would say, and just from our experience, as far as how to tell one of your customers that as far as the grooming, it may be over just because the dog is too old, try and make the customer understand. First of all, you understand as the groomer that this is very difficult for any dog owner to hear. And I've been there. Many dog owners can be in denial when their dogs do become elders. So first of all, understand that whatever words you say to this customer are likely to not go over well, because they're going to be sad, because you're basically telling them your dog is too old for me to continue grooming. But anyway, main point is, try and make them understand that the risks of it all. Try and make them understand that by you potentially not grooming this dog anymore because of their old age specifically is beneficial to them, because it might be, especially with certain breeds that are like flat-coated and short-coated. Maybe those dogs, granted they are easier because they don't have haircuts, but those dogs maybe should just be left to rest at home and relax and all of that. But yeah, just try and, when you inevitably have this conversation with one of your customers, try to help them understand why it's a good thing that maybe you shouldn't be grooming the dog anymore because of their old age, the benefits of it. They'll be more rested. Their heart rate won't go up. They have a lot less to deal with. They won't have to stand as much. Try to let people down easy. It's very difficult for people to hear this stuff, especially when it's their dog.
Yeah, and just stress that you just want to keep the dog safe, from harm. That's the thing to really stress and get across to them. But one suggestion that I can come up with is, anybody that owns a dog, you should really just do what we always say: pick up some pointers, watch our YouTube channel, watch someone else's YouTube channel, and learn some basic grooming yourself. Because as your dog ages, if you do run into this problem where a groomer can't do it, at least you have some grooming skills, and your dog is more likely to let you do it because it feels safer with you and more comfortable at home. And that could be a solution where you may end up just grooming your own dog or doing some basic things to keep the dog as groomed as possible as your dog gets older. With that being said, guys, we're going to go from 0 to 100 here. We know it was a serious topic, but we do have our funny comment segment, so let's get into that.
I'm a professional.
Okay. So this was a comment we recently got. Thought this was funny. It says, you guys should have 2 hot chicks do your radio show. You will get more listeners.
What? What is that?
Okay.
All right.
But here's the problem with that, dude. If we get 2 hot chicks to do our radio show, then it's not our radio show anymore. It's the 2 hot chicks.
Right. That would just be Groomer Humor featuring 2 hot chicks.
2 hot chicks. I mean,
right.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, that's Groomer Humor starring hot chick number 1 and hot chick number 2.
It makes me feel bad. We're not hot enough for the show.
Right, exactly.
Obviously, this guy is 19 years old and in his prime sexual nature, because that's where his mind went from listening to our show. Get 2 hot chicks.
You're definitely right about that, especially considering he's telling 2 radio show hosts to hire 2 hot chicks. What difference does that make? It's on the radio. You can't see our faces.
Yeah, only a young buck, would come up with a suggestion like that.
Right. He needs even people's voices to be hot. Doesn't say much about our voices if this is his notes.
Yeah, get 2 hot chicks. Yeah, because they don't see us. They're not going to see. They don't see us. So what would getting 2 hot chicks do?
Right. For that to work at all, you'd have to have them explain to you what they're wearing, and that's just going into a completely different kind of radio show. And I don't think that's
yeah, no. It doesn't fit Pet Life Radio. It just doesn't. Sorry.
I was gonna say that doesn't quite fit Pet Life Radio's niche.
Yeah, but it goes to show you though that we get listeners from all over the place. So Pet Life really draws in all different types. So
they do, yeah, all different types.
I guess we'll consider it.
Yeah. I guess we'll consider it. I mean, I see what he's saying, but I think for now, we'll just keep it you and me. But
thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for stopping by, guys. As always, we'd like to thank our producer, Mark Winter. Thank you so much, Mark. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel. It's called Grooming by Rudy. That's Grooming by Rudy on YouTube.com. Leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. We want to hear from all you guys. You could also like Grooming by Rudy on Facebook. Follow Grooming by Rudy on Instagram and Twitter. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And until next time, take care of yourselves and your pets.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.